In the late 19th century, Sudan was a land of harsh beauty and hardship, shaped by the Nile and the endless Sahara. Life clung to the riverbanks, where ancient rhythms persisted, but foreign rule had upended everything. The Turco-Egyptian administration, backed by Britain, ruled with greed and violence, extracting taxes from a population already on the edge. Traditional leaders were sidelined, and resentment simmered beneath the surface. The abolition of the slave trade, forced by the British, devastated local economies and fueled anger. Discontent grew among pious Muslims, impoverished farmers, and dispossessed merchants alike. Sudan was a tinderbox waiting for a spark. In this climate, hope began to take root in old prophecies. The coming of the Mahdi, a messianic leader who would restore justice and faith. People yearned for a unifier, a prophet warrior to drive out the foreign oppressors. That leader would soon emerge. Muhammad Ahmad ibn Abdullah, the son of a boat builder, was marked by deep piety and a simple life. He travelled Sudan as a Sufi mystic, preaching a return to pure Islam and denouncing the corruption of foreign rulers. In 1881, on Abba Island, he declared himself the Mahdi, the guided one foretold in prophecy. He called for jihad against the Egyptians and their British backers, promising a new, just Islamic order. His message electrified the oppressed to farmers. He was a liberator. To the devout, a spiritual guide. To warriors, a leader promising glory. The Ansar, his followers, rallied to his cause, united by faith and desperation. The Egyptian authorities underestimated him, sending a small force to arrest him. The Mahdi's followers ambushed and destroyed them, a victory seen as divine proof. News spread rapidly, igniting rebellion across Sudan. The Mahdi was no longer just a preacher. He was now the leader of a revolution. His movement grew, drawing in the discontented from every corner of the land. The first cracks in foreign rule had appeared. The Mahdi's uprising had begun. Sudan would never be the same. The Mahdi's revolution swept across Sudan, toppling garrisons and culminating in the dramatic fall of Khartoum in 1885. But just months after victory, the Mahdi died of typhus, leaving a fragile new state. His chosen successor, the Khalifa Abdullahi, was a pragmatic and ruthless leader. The Khalifa transformed the rebellion into a centralized theocracy, crushing dissent and demanding absolute loyalty. He dismantled old tribal structures, built a new army, and imposed strict Islamic law. The Mahdist state became a society organized for war, its people mobilized and its resources stretched thin. The Khalifa's rule was harsh, but he forged a new political order from chaos. Under his iron will, the dream of the Mahdi was reshaped into a disciplined, enduring regime. The Mahdist state, born in faith and fire, now braced itself against enemies within and without. Sudan was united, but at a terrible cost. The Mahdist state's perpetual war consumed Sudanese society. Every man was a soldier, every resource bent to the war effort, leaving villages stripped and families starving. Famine and disease became constant companions, as grain and livestock were seized for the army. The capital, Omdurman, swelled with desperate refugees, while the countryside emptied and fields turned to dust. Survival meant foraging for roots and wild grasses. Families were torn apart by conscription and hunger. Disease, typhus, dysentery, malaria claimed more lives than battle. The population plummeted, villages vanished, and the social fabric unraveled. The dream of a pure Islamic state brought devastation and trauma. The land was left barren, its people exhausted by years of relentless conflict. The cost of revolution was paid in suffering and loss. The Mahdist War became a brutal contest between faith and industrial firepower. The Ansar fought with swords and spears, their courage legendary, but their weapons outdated. The British brought rifles, artillery, and the Maxim gun, a machine of mass death. Gunboats patrolled the Nile, projecting imperial power deep into Sudan. The Mahdists tried to adapt, capturing weapons and learning new tactics, but they could never match British technology. Night attacks and ambushes slowed the enemy, but the gap was insurmountable. The war became flesh against steel, faith against machinery. The courage of the Ansar was immense, but industrial warfare proved unstoppable. The fate of Sudan would be decided by the machines of empire. The final showdown came at Omdurman in 1898. The Khalifa gathered over 50,000 warriors for a last desperate stand. Facing them, Kitchener's Anglo-Egyptian army was smaller, but armed with modern rifles, artillery, and Maxim guns. As the Ansar charged, they were met with a relentless storm of bullets and shells. The battle was over in hours. Thousands of Mahdist warriors fell, while British losses were minimal. Omdurman was not a battle but a massacre, a demonstration of the technological gulf between empire and resistance. The Mahdist army was destroyed, the Khalifa fled, and the capital lay open. The Mahdist state, born in hope and faith, was crushed by industrial might. Sudan's fate was sealed on the killing fields by the Nile. The era of Mahdism ended in blood and defeat. The survivors faced a new, uncertain future. The land was conquered, but not healed. The end of the Mahdist state brought no peace, only deeper suffering. War, famine, and disease ravaged the land. Entire communities vanished. The collapse of administration meant hunger, and epidemics swept unchecked. Families returned to ruins, their fields lost to the desert. The Bakara, once powerful, were now defeated and distrusted. British rule brought new masters, focused on control, not relief. For ordinary Sudanese, freedom was replaced by a harsher, more distant authority. The struggle for independence had ended in new chains. With Mahdism crushed, Britain established the Anglo-Egyptian condominium, a colony in all but name. Modernization came, but unevenly, deepening old divisions. The British ruled north and south separately, fostering mistrust and inequality. The north received investment and education. The south was isolated and neglected. Policies banned Arabic and Islam in the south, encouraging Christian missions instead. Two Sudans were created within one border, sowing seeds of future conflict. When independence came in 1956, the country was fractured and unequal. The northern elite inherited power, while southerners remained marginalized. The legacy of Mahdism and colonial rule was a nation divided, haunted by its past. The wounds of empire would bleed for generations.